People usually use that for, Canine Hybrid, I know, used it for Velociraptor, space alien thing she's making.
Oh, wow.
It's an original character from one of her stories she wrote for like school.
Okay.
And she pretty much worked on it.
Alrighty. I think we will be in. Cameras ready?
Yes.
And she's usually like,
Yeah.
my height, and I could call her a
Say hi.
I'd like to welcome you all here to the Resin Fiberglass We're going to start out by talking about this stuff right here. This here, Bondo resin. It's a polymer resin, basically. It's endothermic reactions. What you use this for, you can use it for car repair, you can use it for boat repair, costume making. That's really the reason why we're all here. And I'm going to show you, teach you a little bit about it. Essentially what you do is, when you want to mix this stuff, you need to get one of these. It's basically a little container. It can be anything. I got this like at Walmart for like $1. Opened it up, poured it in, and mixed it up, adding the catalyst. Let's see if I got the catalyst around here somewhere. Oh boy. Here we go. Essentially, a little clear liquid. You're going to have to follow the instructions on here. Generally, it says you're going to need about 7 drops per ounce. Usually you do this by weight, so you look it up on here. It's pretty easy to follow. And then you mix it. That's the general theory before applying. Now, before you do all that, you're going to make sure you have at least some rubber gloves on, and some type of respirator, because the fumes from this actually can cause long-term damage. Essentially, you'll feel a little woozy, a little buzz, maybe even high for a little bit, and then you'll think it's over, but literally that could actually cause respiratory problems, it can cause brain problems, literally just the decay of cognitive functions. And so you really want to be prepared for working with this stuff. Try not to have kids around it, or small animals, or large animals, or anybody really that doesn't have any type of mask on.
Anything that has a respiratory system.
Yeah, anything that can breathe, essentially. Do it if you're going to do it in like an area that has a lot of neighbors, a lot of people walking around. I know sometimes you live in like maybe an apartment complex or something like that. Try finding a place that's like downwind of that like goes off into the wind will blow off into nature or something like that, or where there's nobody, maybe like an industrial park or something like that.
Fuck you, nature.
just try to be like aware of your surroundings when you use this stuff. There's 2 types of resin that are usually commercially publicly available. This you can get at Home Depot for about like $30 to $40 for this size of can. You can also go to Michael's, Joanne Fabrics, AC Moores, and you can get a smaller type of resin, probably about this size. And it's a clear acrylic resin instead of this polymer resin. And essentially that stuff is used for more over casting stuff such like this. This is actually, this is some orgonite that I made on a whim the other day. I'll get into that later. And essentially you want to use that for casting. You don't want to use it for making this stuff. I've tried it in the past. I've tried making visors with it. It warped. So don't use it for that. Use it strictly for casting. This stuff also, I'll show you how to apply this essentially. After you mix it and add the catalyst and stuff like that, what you're going to want to do is take whatever mold you have. Like I use Peppercura models. If some of you here might have heard of them. They're essentially papercraft models you design on a computer using 3D modeling techniques. And you print it out and assemble. And what I do is I take the Peppercura model and I apply it to the inside, multiple coats. This had about 4 or 5 coats to it, so I wanted this to be really hard. The more coats you add to it, the harder it will be. And once you get that base coat of it down, then you're going to start wanting to apply the fiberglass cloth or matting. Now the fiberglass cloth is a lot easier to work with just because it's like cloth, like literally. Yeah, the fiberglass matting though, it's like a lot of prickly stuff going everywhere. You're going to want to wear like actually work gloves with it because you might prick your hand and get a piece of fiberglass in there, and that could cause some bad times of going to the hospital. This stuff is really great to work with. It's about $4 at Walmart. You can pick up there. This is about 8 square feet, so you can get a lot done with this. And after you get that first base coat of resin in there, you're going to want to apply 1 layer of this in there. And then you do another layer of resin, and if the harder you want it to get, you can keep applying more and more to it. It's really up to you. Although that being said, it'll get heavier when you do that as well. So if you want to have like a head prop like this is about like 8 pounds. You might want to go less with that if you're going to build like a fursuit head and you'll be wearing it all day. So I'll show you this as well. This is another thing I made. It was a cast of my head that I rendered out. And after applying the resin and the fiberglass to the outside of it, just because I wanted to make this a dummy mold, I applied this stuff called Bondo body filler. Essentially what it is, it's basically kind of like this, except it's more a dent filler. You can use it to fix dents on cars, boats, whatever you can dent. And essentially just fill in the body with it like here. Wherever these little circles are, that was a little place that needed a little extra, so you mix it up the same way. It has its own catalyst, you mix it, and then you apply like so. There's also a combination of mixing Bondo body filler and body resin called Rondo or Mud. I used it right here. This is essentially the mixture. It's very quick flowing and it hardens fast, so you want to make like a reservoir. That's what I did here. And you can pour it in there and it'll fill it. And you can also make really nice smooth curves over curved surfaces with it when it hardens. But other than that, it's really hard to work with. You got to really practice with it. This is just a big practice thing I wanted to do. After that, after you got your mold or your prop, you can either paint it, which is what I did with this. I did a bunch of layers of just regular brush, black spray paint, and then I dry brushed it with silver, and then I did the horns with another like copper, copper as a base, and then like a tan for the outside of it. I don't want to redo these because it doesn't look good in my opinion. But if you don't want to paint it and you want to make multiples of the same thing like I did with this, you can take the smooth cast 45 Delta semi-rigid plastic casting materials. It's also, actually, this is the stuff it is, the 45 Deltas. Essentially what you do is you pour it, you mix this a 2-part compound, you mix it in a cup like this or whatever you want to use, depending on what the size of your project. You basically pour it in multiple layers. This was actually about like 6 layers that I poured over this thing over a period of a couple days because this stuff takes forever to dry. And then after you wait and it cures, you can essentially pull it off and you get this thing, which is a flappy sack-like thing. And essentially that's your mold. So what you do after that is you can apply another layer of resin over it, and so that can make an external cast of it, so it keeps it rigid instead of just flopping around. Because you don't want to have this flopping around when you got some resin or plastic inside of it, and it's going to warp your mold and everything. So I don't have any examples of that at the moment, but this is what you do with that. You could also, this is basically the plastic you could use for it. It's basically a lighter version of this right here. I got it from smoothon.com. You can get a lot of stuff there. They have a whole lot of tutorials on YouTube, and basically I've gone on to them. When you're doing this, you might also have some plastic matting on the floor if you're doing this indoors or outdoors. I suggest doing it outdoors because of the fumes from that stuff. This right here was another casting I made with the Smooth On. It's essentially a large rectangle that I encased a can of Mountain Dew in with that clear resin because it was a going away present to somebody. And you can essentially just pull it out and basically it looks like a big old ice block with a Mountain Dew can inside. It had a lot of bubbles in it, and the problem with that is it wasn't under any type of pressure. When you do casting with a resin, you might want to get like some type of pressure chamber. You can go to Harbor Freight and pick up a paint can stirrer. It'll be a big metal container that you can actually apply some type of engine to it, and you can modify it so that it basically sucks all the air pressure out of there, and it'll cause the bubbles to rise. Or you can do the same thing, adding air pressure into it. It's the same type of reaction. And that can make cleaner casts. It can make them see-through casts when using the clear stuff. This here is kind of an example of it. It has the air bubbles inside it, although it's kind of a plate, you can't really see it. Let me see what else here. Getting resin off of you if you don't have any protective equipment on can be really hard because you might not notice it at first, like, oh, I feel a little itchy somewhere. I got this resin on me, let's say. Oh, okay, it's itching. About 10 minutes later, I'm feeling a little warm on my arm. What is that? Oh, I just noticed I got something sticky in my hands. Oh shoot, I got the resin on me. And then right about that time you realize it's going to start burning you. So it's kind of not good to get on you. That's why I would suggest wearing something like this, or at least wear it like a long sleeve shirt that you don't care about. And then basically what I use after finding a long time of mixing stuff, these are two of the ingredients that I use to remove resin from my hands. I use the Goo Gone, the Fast Orange. It could be, there's a lot of products of this. This is just one of them. Like they got orange soap, orange lava soap, anything really with the pumice inside of it. They'll say it right there on it. That'll work. You mix that as well with some, what's that stuff that, shoot, what's his face? Billy Mays used to sell
OxyClean.
Mix these with some OxyClean and some tequila or sake or any type of alcohol. That's generally the alcohol I have at home. Take a shot of it before I mix it with my hands and this stuff. And then it actually just
Don't
comes off
take
with
the
some
shot when it has the orange in it.
I fix them all, rub it off, and after a good amount of scrubbing, it'll be weak enough that I can take a brush or some washcloth that I don't care about and rub it off. But if it hardens on you and it doesn't burn you that much, I mean, you could literally just peel it off later. I would suggest going against that because that stuff can actually go through the skin and enter the bloodstream, and that can cause a whole bunch of other problems that you don't want. So just be really careful when working with this stuff. I've found out multiple times, I'm lucky I don't have any permanent burns. I've got a lot of hot glue burns from making stuff like this, and that's really that. What else do I got to go over here? Usually when your resin is drying and Bondo is drying, let it cure for up to 24 hours because it can still be tacky. You can still touch something on the model and it'll shift and bow or warp. I had a problem with this part right here. It actually cracked on me because of that, because this stuff has an endothermic reaction when you mix the catalyst and the resin. So it gets really, really hot. That's why it burns you. And so, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but it can warp stuff. I mean, if you use hot glue to put your models together like this, I use the high temperature melting hot glues, so you got to kind of go with like 400 degrees of a hot glue gun to melt this stuff to apply it. The resin, it can get up to that high, but that's if you mix a lot of catalyst. You really have to be careful when mixing your catalyst, because that can make or break what you're making. Even on here, if you guys want to look at here later, there's some cracking along the edges. That's because I added too much catalyst, and it might fall apart eventually, who knows. That was just an experiment that I was doing, and that's really that. And
question: if you add too little catalyst, will it never cure, or will
it'll take forever to cure? I've done that once just because I wanted to see that, and that was actually on another one of these that I made before this one, just to test this one first. I didn't have the horns on and everything, and it took about 3 days to dry, and I did about 4 drops of resin to 1 ounce. I just did one little inside coat, and it took forever. I was worried about it. I've also, instead of trying, when I was out deployed in the Middle East and I had access to resin, I tried using duct tape instead of fiberglass. You don't want to use that because essentially the resin for some reason didn't want to bond to the duct tape. And so when I left the model in 130-degree sun for a couple days and I came back to it, I picked it up and it just kind of crumbled in my hands and it was still wet. I'm like, geez, Pete, never doing duct tape again.
If you've got resin that isn't curing very well, you can put a heat lamp on it.
You could do that. When I was working on my Lego head that I've had here at this con, you can probably see me sitting around in a creepy alleyway or something like that here. The resin, I literally applied the resin to the Lego head about a couple days ago, and it still wasn't curing because of the cold weather we've been having. So essentially what I did was when I was driving over here yesterday in the 45-degree weather, I had to heat all the way up in my car to let this thing dry. I'd advise against doing that because I was driving buzzed on the way here. So I tell you everything out of personal experience, and even it's recent personal experience. You could add a heat lamp. You could even put it in the sun, I found. I mean, even if it's a cold day, just put it in the sun as long as there's light going onto it. So.
I've even seen people who go to Goodwill and get an old oven.
Oh, really?
Put it outside, and it's just for that. Don't put it in your food oven.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I didn't want to ever do it in my oven. I kind of just discarded that idea. That's a good idea, though. I might have to put a Goodwill. I've heard of people doing that also with plastic forming, but that's another thing.
You just have to run a 230 extension cord out there.
Yeah. I don't know if my neighbors would like it or not. They're really high on stuff like that. Now that we've gotten through all the dangers of resin, the applications of resin, who wants to try eating some resin? Anybody? Anybody?
For $1.
$1. I'll give you $1. I guarantee you this is safe to eat. I'll even try a little bit too. You want to try it? Okay, come on over here.
tree resin?
Yeah.
Ah,
yeah.
maple syrup, yeah.
Ye old resin, that's what I like to call it.
Ah.
So, yeah. I mean, this is all synthetic resins. I mean, originally with like maple syrup and stuff like that. I don't know how I'm going to get that in there.
This could get messy.
Nope.
This could get
Just
messy.
open your mouth.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, this is actually blueberry maple syrup that I got at the dollar store this morning, just to shock you all kind of with it, because I'm like, okay, wait for it, it's gonna be quiet and awkward when that happens, but essentially you got.
Somebody has an allergic reaction to blueberries.
Oh, man, I would feel so terrible.